Retired Lieutenant General Ben Hodges, who served as America's Europe commander, made a remarkable statement about Crimea. In a post on his personal account, Hodges claimed that Crimea will be liberated in August. Retired Lieutenant General wrote the following on his personal account on social media. Time is on Ukraine's side during the war. They have no problems in terms of manpower. Their logistical support is increasing every week. Russian soldiers want to escape from the front. Ukraine's moves could make Crimea a free country by August. It would also mean that Russia would lose its most important base in the Black Sea. If this happens, Russia will lose much of its dominance in the Black Sea. The reason why Crimea is so much on the agenda is its strategic geographical location. The ports of the peninsula in the Black Sea are an important source of profit for maritime trade. The region is very important for world maritime trade. In addition, Crimea's neighborhood to the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov is of great importance for maritime sovereignty and control of maritime traffic. Apart from Hodges, a remarkable statement about Crimea came from a retired British commander. Stuart Crawford, former commander of the British Royal Armoured Corps, said, "The biggest prize in the Russia-Ukraine war is Crimea. Whoever controls Crimea and the naval bases in Sevastopol will control the Black Sea." These developments on the Crimean Peninsula show that Ukraine is determined to expel Russia from all occupied territories. In support of this, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has brought Crimea up in almost all of his speeches. President Zelensky says that the occupation started in Crimea and will end when the Crimean Peninsula is liberated. The Ukrainian army is determined to take Crimea, as the president has stated. The Ukrainian army has surrounded Crimea from two directions, one from Kherson and two from Melitopol. Because in order to liberate Crimea from occupation, it is necessary to completely expel the Russians from Kherson and Melitopol. With this plan, the Ukrainian army intensified its operations in Kherson and Melitopol. Therefore, the war started to intensify in Kherson and Zaporizhia regions. Serious clashes have intensified in the regions. The Russian army started to remove its troops from the region. The Russian army, which was on the offensive at the beginning of the war, is now on the defense. Ukraine's strategic target is Crimea because dominating Crimea will tie Russia's hands. In the last 2 weeks, the fighting in Crimea has increased dramatically. A few days ago, Ukrainian troops launched an airstrike on Crimea, which hit the Russians unexpectedly hard. The Ukrainian military is using HIMARS missile systems in these strikes. The missile systems caused two big explosions in Crimea. The Russian authorities kept silent about the explosion in Crimea. However, the severity of the missile attacks in Crimea is likely to leave Russia with hundreds of soldiers and logistical wreckage. If the explosions continue, Russia will be in a very difficult situation. The people of Crimea say that with the explosion, the tail marks of the missiles can be seen in the sky. It is also claimed that the Ukrainian Air Force conducted reconnaissance in Crimea with unmanned aerial vehicles after the explosion. Moreover, immediately after the incident, there was another development confirming this claim. 2 days after this explosion in Crimea, Ukrainian soldiers organized a major operation in Sevastopol region. During the operation organized by the Ukrainian Air Force, there were big explosions in the Sevastopol region. Ukraine had previously carried out another attack on Sevastopol in November 2022. In this attack, the port of Sevastopol was hit. As a result of the attack, a large flagship of the Russian Navy and 3 ships were damaged. On the other hand, there was information that there were violent explosions at Belbek military airport in Crimea. It was claimed that this attack was also carried out by the Ukrainian Air Force. These operations in Crimea, which Russia occupied with great propaganda, are making the Russian authorities very uneasy. Russian leader Vladimir Putin faced numerous crises that he did not plan before attacking Ukraine. That's why Putin, who suffered a great failure in the war, is putting different plans on the table, but the Russian army has no strength left to fight. The Ukrainian army, on the other hand, continues to launch new attacks and renew itself every day. Recently, the Ukrainian army's blowing up of the Russian ammunition depot in Melitopol was seen as a big step to liberate Crimea from the occupiers, because both armies know very well that Melitopol is the gateway to Crimean Peninsula. So maybe Ukraine can take Crimea even before August. The Russian army, on the other hand, cannot find a solution to its missile systems. It is losing in all the regions where it is fighting. Russian troops have started to suffer huge losses in the eastern and southern regions where the fighting has intensified. The success of Ukrainian soldiers, as well as the forced recruitment of Russian soldiers and the indiscipline of mercenaries in the army, are effective in these losses. For these reasons, Russia has been deploying more mercenaries and Kadyrov soldiers to the front in the regions where the fighting is intense. Russia's forcibly recruited unpaid soldiers are in areas far away from the conflict. Mercenaries, on the other hand, are failing in operations. Putin has suffered many losses because of this. The losses of the Russian army since the beginning of the occupation of Ukraine are as follows: 114,660 soldiers, 3,104 large tanks, 6,173 heavily armored combat vehicles, 437 reactive fire systems, 219 air defense systems, 286 aircrafts, 276 helicopters, 17 ships and boats carrying military personnel, 723 cruise missiles, 1,867 unmanned aerial vehicles, 4 tactical missile complexes. While the Russian army is losing power, the Ukrainian army is getting stronger day by day with the support from Europe and the West. Russian leader Putin is helpless in the face of this aid. Putin, who was cornered, met with the leader of Belarus a few weeks ago and asked for help. Immediately after Putin's meeting, a great activity was observed on the Belarus-Ukraine border. It was announced that Russian soldiers, together with Belarusian soldiers, started training on the Belarus-Ukraine border. The Ukrainian military said that this military training was carried out to provoke Ukraine. The Ukrainian army announced that they are closely following the developments on their borders, and there is nothing to worry about. Having received unexpected results in the war, Putin's next plan is to call for negotiations. Unable to find soldiers to fight and running out of ammunition, Putin is calling for negotiations to solve this problem. Putin's calls for negotiations are not seen as sincere. It is thought that he is only maneuvering to buy time. It will not be a surprise for anyone that Putin and Russia will emerge from the war with a major defeat. We will see how far the war will go in 2023. Do you think Ukraine can restore Crimea to its former glory? How will Crimea's return to the Ukrainian side affect the war? Will Putin be able to solve the problem of illegal soldiers? Will the Russia-Ukraine war end in August? We are really curious about your views. Follow us for more updates.